History Tales, where the past comes alive.
World War II was fought with tanks, planes, and guns. But there was another battlefield, one hidden in shadows, ruled not by soldiers but by mathematicians, linguists, and code breakers. At the heart of this silent war stood a machine, the Enigma. A device so complex the Nazis believed it was unbreakable. They were wrong. And Britain's victory might have hinged on the minds inside a quiet country estate known as Bletchley Park. The year is 1930, and in Germany, a revolutionary device is changing the face of secret communication. This is the Enigma machine. It looked like a complicated typewriter, but it was a marvel of electromechanical engineering. Each day, German operators would set the machine's rotors to a new, secret combination. With over 150 quintillion possibilities, the messages they sent were scrambled into what seemed like an indecipherable code. To the Allies, it was just random noise. To the Nazis, it was a guarantee of absolute security. And for a time, they were right. Allied convoys carrying vital supplies across the Atlantic were being sunk at an alarming rate. German U-boats, guided by these coded messages, hunted with deadly precision. Every ship lost meant thousands of lives gone, precious cargo at the bottom of the ocean, and the war creeping ever closer to defeat for the Allies. The Enigma was a wall, and Britain had to find a way to break through it. Back in Britain, far from the front lines, a different kind of army was being assembled. In the quiet English countryside, at an estate called Bletchley Park, the government gathered its brightest minds. There were chess champions who could think dozens of moves ahead, linguists who understood the nuances of language, and brilliant mathematicians who saw the world in patterns and equations. But among them, one man would rise above all others: Alan Turing. When Turing first arrived at Bletchley Park, he was an oddity, shy, socially awkward, but with an intellect that burned with fierce determination. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a politician, he was a pure mathematician with a groundbreaking idea that would not only change the course of the war, but would shape the future of our modern world. He saw the Enigma not as an unbreakable cipher, but as a puzzle waiting to be solved. The challenge was monumental. Every single day, at midnight, the Enigma settings changed, rendering any progress made completely useless. By the time one day's code was painstakingly solved, it was already obsolete. The Germans were always one step ahead. Frustration mounted inside the huts of Bletchley Park. The pressure was immense. Even with 1,000 people working around the clock, they could never crack the code in time to make a difference. It felt hopeless. But while others saw an impossible task for human minds, Turing saw a problem for a machine. He argued, "We can't fight Enigma with men. We need a machine that is faster than any human brain." Turing envisioned a colossal electromechanical device that could test thousands of possible Enigma settings in a matter of hours, a task that would take a human codebreaker years. He called his invention the bomb. The construction of the bomb was a feat of engineering, a massive, clattering, spinning machine filled with wires and rotors. This wasn't just code-breaking anymore. This was the birth of modern computing, happening right there, in a wooden hut, driven by the urgency of war. For months, Turing's machine struggled. The codes were slippery, the settings seemed endless, and the team was pushed to the brink of exhaustion. Long nights bled into disappointing days. The bomb would run, clicking and whirring, but failed to find the key. The team was on the verge of giving up. But then a crack appeared, not in the machine but in the Germans themselves. A small, crucial observation was made. The German operators, despite their discipline, were creatures of habit. They had predictable patterns. Every morning, their weather reports would start with the same phrases. At the end of many messages, they would sign off with "Heil Hitler." These predictable words, which the codebreakers called cribs, gave Turing's machine the foothold it desperately needed. By programming the bombs to search for these known phrases within the scrambled text, the number of possibilities was dramatically reduced. And then, one cold winter night in 1941, it happened. The bomb, which had been clattering away for hours, suddenly slowed down. A light flickered. An operator? His voice, trembling with excitement, shouted, "It's stopping! Alan, we've got it!" For the first time, Britain could read the enemy's secrets. Convoys were rerouted away from U-boat wolfpacks, ambushes were avoided. Thousands of lives were saved. But here was the cruel and terrible irony of their success. Britain couldn't act on every single piece of intelligence. To do so would be too obvious. If every U-boat was suddenly dodged, if every ambush was perfectly countered, the Germans would realize, sooner or later, that Enigma was broken. They would change the machine, and the advantage would be lost forever. So, the leaders of the Allied forces had to make cold, ruthless calculations. Decisions became a grim form of triage. Which convoy could be saved? Which one had to be sacrificed to protect the larger secret? Imagine knowing a ship was sailing into a trap and being ordered to do nothing. This was the silent, brutal reality of the secret war. Victory didn't just depend on breaking the code. It depended on keeping that secret at all costs, even when the cost was human lives. By 1944, the codebreakers at Bletchley Park had become masters of their craft. The Allies were reading German communications almost in real time. Hitler's forces were effectively blind, their supposedly unbreakable code completely shattered. This intelligence advantage was the hidden weapon that would tip the scales of the entire war. As the Allies prepared for the largest amphibious invasion in history, D-Day, the intercepts from Enigma were invaluable. General Eisenhower and the Allied commanders knew the German positions. They knew their strength, and they knew their plans. On June 6, 1944, when Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, they did so with a crucial advantage. They knew what the Germans were thinking, because they were reading their mail. The D-Day invasion was a success, and it marked the beginning of the end for the Third Reich. The war's turning point had arrived, thanks in large part to the secrets wrested from the Enigma machine. Historians estimate that breaking the Enigma code shortened the war by at least 2 years, saving millions of lives in the process. Yet the incredible work done at Bletchley Park remained one of the most closely guarded secrets of the 20th century, for decades after the war ended. The men and women who worked there were sworn to secrecy, unable to speak of their monumental contributions. Alan Turing, the genius who cracked the Enigma, was never fully honored in his lifetime. Instead, he was persecuted by the very country he helped save. He died in silence in 1954, his story largely unknown. But today, he is rightly remembered not only as a war hero, but as the father of modern computing and artificial intelligence. In the end, it wasn't just bombs or bullets that won the war. It was the power of human intellect, the courage to challenge the impossible, and the will to think differently. This was the secret war of the Enigma code. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold tales from history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.